So Pat Vellner gave us a little bit of a hint as to what his plans are for the season, and I think possibly what some other people's are as well.
I don't think I see a lot of value in competing in the CrossFit Games season for myself at this point.
So that clip was from Coffee Wads and Pods. You should go over and check out the whole thing. I will link it in the description below. It's definitely worth watching it in its entirety. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what we heard from Pat Vellner in that interview. So it sounds like he's not planning on competing in the CrossFit Games season, at least not at this time, not under what we've heard so far. With a lot of it being online, he made clear that online is not really something he's interested in.
Candidly, I have no interest in competing online. I just don't. It means nothing to me. It means very little to anybody who competes at a high level. I think it's a joke.
Although it did sound like he advised newer athletes who might not know where they want to go or are worried about what options there will be outside of the CrossFit Games season to compete. He advised those athletes to continue doing the open, maybe do semifinals in their gym, because it's all online and easy to do. So for those athletes who can recover faster, are still trying to break into the sport, it may be worth doing. But for him, he is likely going to skip it. And I believe I talked about this in some of my previous videos, especially talking about Rogue, that there are some athletes I'm not sure that we'll see again at the CrossFit Games. At that time, I don't think I thought it was Pat. Like, I didn't think Pat was going to be pulling himself out. But I thought there's a good chance that Jeff Adler might not come back to the games, a good chance that Laura Horvath may not come back to the games. Some of the European athletes that were quicker to pull out this summer after Lazar's death, I think a lot of those athletes might be the ones that we see going different directions. And that will lead into the second part of this video, where I'm going to do a little bit of a preview for Dubai. But I wanted to talk about this first because we are going to see some changes. We have some different events popping up. We have Will Morad's World Fitness Collective that is going to be doing something. I'm not entirely sure what that something is just yet. I don't know if they've announced it, and I don't have any insider information about that, but that will be something. There are a bunch of other competitions that are already good competitions. Take Wodapalooza. Pat said he's competing in Wodapalooza. I feel like I've heard a lot of athletes say they're competing in Wodapalooza, and a lot are doing both individual and team. If you don't know, Wodapalooza made a bit of a change last year, trying out a new format that they're going to continue with this year, and that is 2 days of individual competition followed by 2 days of team competition, which seems to be mostly formed from super teams of individuals, or at least the top level teams are super teams of individuals, some of which competed the 2 days before and are doing team to have fun on the back end. So there's a lot of other opportunities. Rogue is one of them. That one has a huge prize purse, one that can rival the games. So there may be a number of athletes that are choosing different directions. I feel like we're seeing more athletes show up at different competitions. Also this weekend in the UK is Fit Fest, and there's a lot of athletes going over that way too. And I think it might be worth paying attention to which athletes are choosing to do all these events. I don't think that all of them are athletes that aren't competing in the games. I know that a lot of these athletes competed in other events prior to what happened this summer. So I wouldn't say look at the athletes competing and assume that most of them aren't competing at the CrossFit Games. But I would say that if you're seeing an athlete do a bunch of international competitions, more than they've done in previous years, that could be an indicator that they are at least testing the waters of what it might look like to not compete in CrossFit's season and instead look at some of the outside events. And I imagine there's some athletes that haven't made a decision yet. It sounded like Pat was fairly certain, but it also didn't sound like Pat was like 1,000% no chance he's doing the games. He did not say that. He just said it doesn't seem, as of right now, to be something he's interested in. Come February, maybe he feels differently, maybe things change. But we're definitely starting to get some indication of where people's heads are at. So let's now transition into Dubai. Why I feel this is sort of connected. It's another one of those big competitions with a good prize purse that a lot of athletes have went to in the past, but now especially under these circumstances, I think it has even more eyes on it, knowing that maybe some of these athletes won't be competing at the games. So I think maybe that draws in more audience, or should. Maybe it should draw in more audience. And if you haven't thought about that, just something to keep in mind, that some of these athletes might not be going to, I was gonna say Fort Worth, but don't know where that is. Some of these athletes might not be going to the CrossFit Games because they're choosing not to, not because they get knocked out early in the season. They might just be electing to not sign up. So let's talk a little bit about who I think we're gonna put on the podium, men's, women's, some other people to watch. Generally what you need to know. I believe Dubai will be streaming the event as they have in the past on their YouTube page. Last year they didn't stream any of the first day, but this year they do have one on-site event the first day. So hopefully they will stream that one at least. There are 2 off-site events. I don't know if we'll see a stream for those. I think it's a little bit more difficult when it's not on-site, where they already have all of the resources to stream set up. But we should get a stream, I believe, for the final event, hopefully on day 1, but also for days 2 and 3. I feel more confident about days 2 and 3. So you can watch it from the comfort of your home. Hours are gonna be crazy because Dubai is way, way, way ahead of at least where I am in California, but way ahead of all of the United States and a lot of Europe. So check the times. Maybe you'll have to watch in the middle of the night, or maybe you'll have to wait till you wake up. So let's start with the women and who I think may be able to make a podium run. So on the women's side of this field, we do have the winner from last year, Karen Freyova. She is also someone I could see choosing not to compete in the CrossFit Games season this upcoming year. So this could be a big competition for her, although I'm not going to pick her to repeat win. I have her on my podium. I have her second, but I am going to pick Matilda Garns to win this competition. She looked great at the Belgrade Games that happened just recently. That could be a quick turnaround, but I think that there's been enough time for her to recover, and I think that she's also another athlete that we may not be seeing compete at the games again. So again, could be a big competition for her where she's putting a lot of her eggs in this basket. And I saw her back training with Krieger instead of training at Peak 360, where she did team this past year. So I think all of that may bode well for her to have a good competition. Finally, in third, I have Linda Kiesman. She impressed me a lot this season. She did great at semifinals. And again, the games this year, there's this weird asterisk, so I don't really look at that the same way. But I do think that this could be a really good opportunity for Linda to show people what she can do and that she can compete with the big dogs. There is a wealth of other women, though, to consider for the top 10 in this field. So Alicia Fuliano, she was also at the Belgrade Games and did very well there. I think she came in second. So she's super fit, someone who kind of burst onto the scene a couple years ago and has just been consistent since then. She's not like some people that had those sophomore slumps. She's just kind of been relevant and able to compete and able to make the games every year since the first year that she did. So I would definitely keep an eye on her, and she's another person that I think has a chance of not competing at the CrossFit Games again and is doing more outside competitions, I think, because of that. Brittany Weiss, I also have on my list. Different situation with her. I'm not sure where her headspace is with the CrossFit Games season, but she competed at Crash Crucible and looked fantastic. And that was a couple months ago now, so plenty of time for her to recover for this competition. And I was just very impressed with how she looked at Crash. She looked very poised. She looked like she's getting stronger. That's somewhere that she's lacked. She's had the experience of winning the CrossFit Games. I know that's on a team, but that's still experience in that arena with that pressure. So I think that she has a lot of things going for her. She's also working with Yami now, which is like Annie Thorisdottir's old coach. So maybe her current coach. But she's working with Yami, and I think that she has a really good opportunity here to show people what she can do among what I think is a tougher field compared to Crash Crucible, which was a fantastic competition. Great live streams, very much enjoyed that. I just think this is a little bit more of a, it's attracting bigger competition, more money, that kind of stuff. Then we have Jamie Simmons, who we haven't seen as much of in a while, but was super fit, also ended up on the podium as a team athlete. I believe she won the CrossFit Open one year. So another person that I definitely think is worth keeping an eye on. Annika Greer, she has been so close to making the games the last 2 years. And I know that she's been very focused on trying to fill in those holes that has left her on the outside looking in, just on the outside looking in. So I think that this could be a good coming out beginning of her season for her as well. Then we also have Andrea Solberg and we have Hannah Black. There's just a lot of really good female athletes that are going all the way out to Dubai to test themselves. And kind of like I mentioned, I will be interested to see which of these athletes that are competing here decide to continue to compete the rest of the season in the CrossFit Games season. On the men's side, the athlete that I'm going to pick to win it all is Moritz Fiebig. He's also looked really good this off season and seems very focused, and also is someone that I think was hit hard by the Lazar situation, and is another European athlete that I think may choose not to compete in the CrossFit Games season. Again, making these off-season competitions even more of a focus for them than they were in previous years. In second, I have Luka Dukic. I feel like he is doing everything he can to keep his brother's legacy alive, and in some ways do the things that his brother will never be able to do again. So I think that, he's doing it with his brother's face on his chest. I think that there's a lot behind why he's competing, and I think we're going to see Luka continue to become the fittest version of himself in light of this tragedy. I'm sure that was something he wanted to do either way, but I do think that that's a way that he seems to be honoring his brother. So I do think that we're going to see that manifest in competition, and wishing him all the best. And in third, I have Callum Clements. He has been a semifinals athlete for a while, I think, among this field, and with some of these workouts that he could have podium potential. But there are a couple other guys that I think we need to keep our eyes on. Not necessarily all these guys to make the podium, but some names that I think are interesting to see them competing here. So just some people to keep your eyes on. We've got Tola Moraquinho. He has been primarily a team athlete. Occasionally he'll do these individual competitions to dip his toe in. It's interesting to see how he does, and if maybe he's considering a run at individual this year. We also have, like I said, Matilda Garns at this competition. She was somebody that was on the same team as him. So, that team may not be a team this year, Peak 360. Interesting to see what some of these team athletes are going to do with their season now that things have changed. Bronislaw Olenkowicz is another athlete that's always interesting to watch. He's super strong. He can have a lot of home run hits. He'll also have events he probably finishes close to last in, but because he has those home runs, it usually puts him in the middle of the pack and has qualified him for the CrossFit Games before. So always someone just keep your eye on. He's also a masters athlete, so impressive that he's still competing with the young guys. And finally, Spencer Panchek. He is the Panchek brother that always has a little bit more trouble making it to the game. We had Scott Panchek back in the day, who was a perennial games athlete before he retired. Now we have Saxon Panchek, that's Spencer's twin, who has sort of emerged as the more competitive of the two, but Spencer has made the game several times, so definitely someone to always keep your eye on as person to potentially do really well. So that's a quick look at what's going to happen in Dubai and some commentary on what's going on in the space right now. There's still a lot of questions as to even what the CrossFit Games season is going to look like with some of these sanctioned events, and what exactly are the sanctioned events. We don't know yet. So there's a lot of questions about what everything's going to look like, who is going to compete. It's an interesting time in the sport. And another thing that Pat talked about is sometimes how angry and polarizing these different viewpoints can be on who's competing, who's not competing, if they should compete, all of that.
It's going to be a very interesting season. I hope it doesn't, like everything these days, polarize people to like an aggressive degree. But I don't know. I'm just like, I'm too tired to argue with people about it anymore.
I personally support anyone's decision. Compete, don't compete. I think people have to do what's best for them. I don't believe that everything has to be a fight, that we can allow people to make the decision they think is best for themselves. And I wish all the athletes luck. There could be some good that comes from this. There is benefits of having different competitions available, people able to do different things and make money in the sport in different ways. So I would be interested to see some more pretty major competitions pop up throughout the year that either compete with the games or don't compete with the games, but just give athletes more opportunities. I'm all for the more opportunities and more things for all of us to enjoy during the off season or during different times of the year compared to the CrossFit Games. So I'm hoping that more good than bad comes from this situation. Although this started out tragic, I think that sometimes there's opportunities for growth after that. So I hope to see lots of things grow in different ways. CrossFit, the athletes, new events. I'm trying to stay optimistic, and I do believe there are a lot of things in the CrossFit space to remain optimistic about, or the functional fitness space, however you want to consider it now. But I'm gonna stay optimistic. I appreciate you all for watching. I'll see you the next one. Carson has been behind me this whole time. Good morning. Sorry to wake you up. We'll see you later. Bye. Hey, little buddy. Hi. I love you. Oh, thank you. What a good boy. What a good boy. You're so good. Do you want to go outside? You want to go outside? Yes? Yes? Okay. Okay, we'll go outside.